Did you ever realize that we live in a world where good men are murdered and mediocre hacks thrive? You ever notice that? John Kennedy murdered, Gandhi murdered, Martin Luther King murdered, Jesus murdered, Reagan wounded.
So Ronald Reagan is maybe a person that many point to still, or at least certainly did before the completion of the ascension of Trump, as the guy that brought in maybe the foundations for this new era that we exist in politics. But I think
Yeah.
we can actually see in Reagan's lifetime that history is fully cyclical, and all Reagan was doing was starting the cycle that he started to see more of the end of as he was growing into a young man. Reagan, born in
Yeah.
1911, just as a reminder, was
Mhm.
brought up in an environment where anti-communism was
Yes.
the
Grew up in
name
the
of the
fucking
game.
Gilded Age, for Christ's sake. And I'm sure under well-to-do parentage.
Well, and I think that that age of anti-communism we're now seeing, we it's never really completely gone away by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
Just
No,
saying
no,
that you're a socialist or a communist still would probably get you shunned by most polite, even Democrat voting public company. But even though it hasn't fully gone away, it has taken some new forms with the addition of DEI as the new Red Scare, or at least
no.
the new addition to the
Boogeyman,
modern Red
or
Scare.
yeah, it's I don't know how you're gonna go from having communism as your boogeyman for forever to all of a sudden this shifting array of boogeymen. And granted, there's always been a fair amount of that, a fair amount of just this, like, what's our wedge issue? What are we using to rile up today?
I think that part of the idea might be that we don't need to just settle on
Well,
one
it's
boogeyman. It's better if we make people feel like
exactly,
they're
and that's
surrounded.
that's the beauty of 1984 is where I was trying to go with that,
Hmm.
but that's kind of the final and most essential phase of it. Is it not necessarily needing to be based on anything? It's where you've jumped that shark completely, and reality is what you tell it is, despite your lying eyes. And you have to take all these incremental steps to get there, but there is the end game, and there is oddly where we really seem to be more and more and more, which is horrific.
The end game seems to be rapidly approaching, and I think just like conspiracy theorists like to throw out there, where supposed members of like the Freemasons or the Illuminati or whatever, showing signs of their plans in pop music or whatever, the game was absolutely given up, but in a much more explicit way. I mean,
So, where we are right now, where this really started, or where I started to become very aware of it, and because it
mm,
seemed so fucking odd and out of the blue at the time, that it kind of just it got picked up and ran with.
mm,
But Fox during Obama's tenure, if you remember, all
mm,
of a sudden Putin just got very popular, and he was this like strong, manly
yes.
leader, the height of the Putin on a horse with his shirt off era, and it was
That
like,
was that was actually something that we saw lampooned a lot on Daily Show. We saw
yeah,
them make
and
a
rightly
big to
so.
do about that.
But it never got enough of it to do made about it. Like nobody ever really explored, at least to my satisfaction, what the fuck is their motivation for doing this? Yeah, I
Mm,
mean, political difference and all that. You want to paint your enemy as bad as you can. But like this, glorifying the leader of ostensibly our biggest foreign policy adversary, as credit where credit's due, Mitt Romney rightly pointed out. Like,
mhm.
what end does it serve other than if all these bricks hadn't been already started to be laid by Putin and others at that point to massage that image and to start this internal rift in the states? Maybe not start it, but to amplify that rift. When unfortunately for them, Obama was a great vehicle for that. It was their gateway
Mm.
into exploiting the racial divide. And I guess a component of that must have been like throwing Putin out there in a positive light at the same time, even if it is just sort of kind of in a non sequitur sort of way.
There's always been a desire by the people on Fox News to have somebody that they can bow down to and worship that's in the physical plane, because Jesus just isn't enough for them.
Well, it's the appeal of fascism to this whole class of people. Like, it's amazing how appealing that is to the fucking Murdochs of the world. Like,
Right.
why does that benefit them more than just like unrestrained laissez-faire capitalism, but with a democratic twist? Why the appeal of the fascist regime for these ultra capitalists like that?
Part of it is, I think we can actually see in the ascension of Trump for sure, is that they want to be the kingmaker, and because I don't think that any of them have uh any ego about the idea that they might have a chance. Like, I don't think Murdoch ever really considered himself as
Yeah.
a potential for, a high office, like the presidency. The
He sees
difference,
himself more
the,
as Rasputin than the Tsar.
yeah, the difference between like Murdoch and somebody like Trump, though, is Trump actually did have the thought of, honestly, I don't have to choose the king; I can just be him.
Yeah, because he's just pure fucking id, like, or I
Hmm.
mean, pure ego. Sorry, like
Hmm.
pure, just narcissistic ego.
A lot of that sort of like classic conservative right, I think, really doesn't believe in the MAGA movement almost at all. Outside, I think they just for them it's a tool for what's the basically the reascension of conservatism, or the continued ascension of conservatism, that once again circling all the way back, that Reagan sort of is very well known for bringing about. It's maybe a
Yeah.
bit of a fuzzy truth, a bit disingenuous in some ways, to suggest that Reagan was the one bringing about the rise of conservatism again in the United States, because I
Um,
think that had been in
yes
process
and no.
before
I mean,
him,
there was
and
it was true, but he very much. That's where I was going to bring up Nixon earlier. Is these things were already underway. The ideas were set in
mhm.
place, but he very much was a catalyst. He amplified a lot of these things and sent them racing into the stratosphere. Their fucking end game of all these just heinous behaviors and activity. We're seeing the culmination of all of that in their fucking idiot king now. Which, and I mean, like, he is the model president for an unrestrained laissez-faire capitalism. He is gonna, all he cares about is the stock market making him look good. So anything that is gonna fuel economic growth and is just, yeah, absolutely do it. Which is all we're seeing as far as really actionable shit, other than like just usurping our the other branches, is to privatize or sell off or just do away with that kind of shit. Like, it's
Almost everything, to some extent, that Trump is doing right now. We've kind of seen all this before. Again, in Reagan, actually, uh, lowered. I mean, lowered the tax rate, for the top income tax rate in
yeah.
81 from 70 to 50%, and then from
Hmm.
86 in 86 lowered it from 50 to 28%. So from
Yeah, that was
70%
huge.
to 28%.
And
Uh,
where did all that trickle down get us? When did the benefit of that right there, of dropping that tax rate down, when did that start flowing
well,
into the
the
poor people?
the the conceit that we were sold is that we would have for at least some time higher interest rates that would eventually lowered taxes, which they delivered on, um, a booming stock market, and this would enable employers to raise wages. And that's the big thing that didn't happen, is interest rates have gone all over the place since then, but wages did not. Wages never went
Yeah.
up commensurate with that. So as far as the trickle down, I mean, it's absolutely just
Well, and
an
that's
all out
really where
lie.
that
It's a broken
trend,
promise.
yeah, the trend, that broken promise really started to break the most uh, when we saw, and because that's not coincidentally at all, Reagan had a direct hand in how that works. That's how when we saw the cost of, say, higher education rapidly,
Mhm.
rapidly outpace the minimal growth in income.
Education, housing. I mean,
Yeah, and housing as
virtually
well. Like those
everything.
two things, yeah. And those are two of the biggest expenses that most families are
Right.
gonna encounter is your housing and child's education. Which
We
used to be
also
something that in our parents' and grandparents' generation, yeah. Yeah, grandpa could pay for college by mowing lawns over the summer. Great. We don't have that anymore. Like that, I don't know how that disconnect just can't be seen, but like why are we mad at the young people today for not being able to afford it or having to take out massive loans when we've been told our entire lives, go to school, go to school, go to school.
yes, there's a cultural there's a cultural selling of a product through television, through movies, through a refusal to understand the changing times and a clinging on to nostalgia that our parents or grandparents or their parents may have had. Um, all those things kind of sell us this product that we have a guaranteed, secure, healthy, productive future. It's right there in our grasp. All we have to do is follow these basic steps. Finish high school at
Yeah.
the appropriate time. And honestly, and even then, if you didn't finish at the appropriate time, you'll get a GED. We'll figure that out. And then go to
Or just
college.
get like
And
a
and then
bottom of the barrel job and you can still like afford you can afford to live, which
mm,
should be that should be the standard. Like you should be able to have just like the bottom of the economic pay scale job, but as long as you're like really working a job, you should be able to survive on that. And that is nowhere near the reality in most places.
not even it's not even close. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think I can't imagine a person right now that lives in anywhere close to the area that I live. Like when I say close, I mean within like a 15-minute drive.
yeah.
Uh, that could live off of minimum wage.
Oh, it's impossible. It would almost be impossible and cost of living here is so inexpensive.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
even in areas with relatively low cost of living, it's still how. And if that's
yeah.
just you, well, yeah, it's doable. But like add one child into the mix, and all of a sudden you're completely fucking underwater.
Or add anything that disrupts the
A
the
medical
tentative
expense,
balance. Yeah, a medical
or yeah,
expense, your
a
car.
broken car.
My girlfriend actually just the other day was involved in a minor car accident,
Oh no, shit.
and
Everything
and
kosher?
yeah, nobody hurt, and she's not at fault at all. The other person totally like ran into the front of her car with the side of their car and like peeled off her bumper, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, car is not. I would not want to drive it to work at all. It
Yeah,
can
probably unsafe.
technically drive. It left the scene, but until it gets looked at, So if we didn't live together, if she didn't have family in the area, like whose car would she use to get to work?
Yeah.
That's through no fault of her own. Did nothing wrong. Was leaving work. So was leaving the place of her productivity.
Being a productive citizen, yeah. If she doesn't have the money for that repair, and let's say that damage was just a little bit more to make the car inoperable.
And not to
Like,
reveal too much, but that's not a minimum wage income.
yeah, for
So
sure.
you start you go back a little bit and you just imagine, yeah, like, you have less money to maintain things. Your vehicle's probably more likely just to break down. Not even talk about a wreck that's of no
If you
fault of
couldn't
your own or
afford
anything like
something
that.
super new and dependable to begin with, you probably have a $5,000 car.
A resurgence again of
Yeah.
the theme. What's new is what's old is new again. An old saying. Uh, it's more expensive to be poor than it is to be rich.
Absolutely, dude. There are so many ways that it's so expensive to be poor. We penalize poverty so hard.
Hmm.
And yeah, like I see it just in regular life. Like people that have the most seem to get a lot of crap given to them. Like the doctors where I work, their lunches are provided for them every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense from a productivity standpoint. If you're just purely looking at it from the business standpoint, you don't want to waste their time hoofing it up to the cafeteria or doing whatever. Just, yeah, give them some food and let them, like, do it at their own time, do it while they're doing notes or dictation, whatever. But it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense monetarily. Just, like, give them the fucking cheap food. Like, they're bringing in huge amounts of money. Their time is worth it. But that's just a thing that they end up getting for free, whereas do we have to fucking spend that little half an hour that we get every day schlubbing it up to the cafeteria and paying them for our food, or bringing
Right.
your own and doing it. They're like, either way, it's not being given to us. But you would think from a productivity standpoint, like extend that out and make us more productive and whatnot as well.
Well, and it's not as if in that large system with all those patients, with everything that's going on, those doctors could do their job without you. They could not. I mean,
100%.
it's impossible. It's no statement of their ability or their intelligence or their skill or anything like that or their education. It's physically,
The
humanly impossible.
system needs all the rungs in the ladder. You can't
Yes.
have a functioning ladder when it's missing rungs, whether they're the rungs at the top or the rungs at the bottom.
Right.
You
Exactly.
have to have, and you can take that and move that to any other industry or writ large for the economy.
Well, and that's just it. If we're supposed to be looking at our government, if we're supposed to be looking at our society, like what again, as an appeal that Reagan directly made, common sense we use in our daily lives being what should guide government. If that's the idea, then why are there so many people that are not well paid, that don't have access to healthcare, that don't have access to the things that keep them being productive members of society?
Because common sense doesn't mean what we thought it meant. I mean, I think he was being
Mm,
honest in a way, but he's talking about common sense from the standpoint of the people in his circle that want to continue to be in that top ring and to keep taking a bigger slice of the pie for themselves. In that case, it makes perfect sense. It's logical to follow his course of action.
I guess that is it. It's common sense of the
It's common sense to, of course, I want to take more of this if I'm going to be given that opportunity. Yeah, of course, I'm not going to just like be benevolent about it.
so already we've drawn we've actually without maybe initially fully being prepared to, we've drawn relationships there between Trump and Reagan, and seeing a lot of this before. And we've also seen, some of the anti-worker and anti-union sentiment. We saw it with Reagan. Just
Yeah.
look at firing air traffic controllers as a great example.
Yeah,
Not
what's
even
old
just
is new. Jesus.
yeah, exactly. Like it's one to one. And
Why air traffic controllers? Why that whole system of all fucking things? Is that where you want to pick that fight about unions?
it's
Jesus
incredible.
Christ. Can you mention the fucking fact that police have the strongest union in the history of unions ever that somehow shields them from any accountability in their entirety of their job, that entire profession, even though it has such an amazing amount of power granted to it?
I mean, I think the police union is a union in the same way that the National Socialists were socialists, for one.
That's
But
very true. But they still get to operate ostensibly as any other labor union,
it's true.
and
That yeah,
and
absolutely.
and use that right that they should have as a labor union. I don't not think that the police should have a labor union, although it should be more well regulated, if you will.
Certainly, the culture of it should be a lot more well regulated, given how many
Jesus.
militia groups are spawned out of it on a daily basis. It seems like, which is
Well, I
also
mean, this
again,
whole some of those that run forces, yada yada, like it's not a bug, it's a feature.
yeah, absolutely.
It comes with its lineage as a slave retrieval organization.
We also had some very direct similarities. This is more of a Trump, uh, Trump the prequel, I guess, or Trump the first movie. But Reagan had the Strategic Defense Initiative, which was basically a plan to to put lasers in space. Which
Fucking space lasers. God damn it, Marge! It's not the Jews with the space lasers. It's fucking Reagan. The
it's
calls are coming from
Reagan with the
inside the
space
house
laser.
again.
It was Reagan with the space laser in the observatory.
Exactly.
That's where
Unless
democracy
Marge
was
is
murdered.
saying Reagan was Jewish, and in which case I'm really fucking confused. Because
And, well, you know, I guarantee we can find at least 1,000 YouTube videos that make that claim.
that's probably a lowball number. I'm gonna take the over.
I did say at least.
True. I'm still taking the over.
So
I'm taking the over on whatever the most is that you say after that.
So what do you think? What do you think is going to be Trump's Iran Contra? Who's
Jesus Christ, nothing.
it-
He's done everything worse than Iran Contra already. Just
Yeah.
in this term, we've made Iran Contra look fucking quaint. And how many days has it been now? Like literally on multiple different fronts, we're tearing the Constitution to shreds. Just the
Yeah,
most
I mean we're
basic
3
element.
months in.
Separation of powers. That is as basic. Like here's how the government gets divided up as the Constitution gets, and we're just fuck that. Come on, courts. Where's your army? Prove it. He's gonna try and pull an Andrew Jackson in real life, even though that never really happened in real life.
As far as when I ask what his Iran Contra is going to be, I think
What could it be? What could happen to elicit that response at this point? Even though that granted that didn't think Reagan.
I
But
think I asked the question incorrectly. I meant less as like what would be the thing that sullies his public image in a way that is so dishonorable, and and finally the Republicans
already is though.
hang.
That's what they love about him. They love that
Yeah.
he's so base and
I sort of mean literally. What's going to be the thing that he does where he feels like I can't directly subvert the law? I can't overtly abuse my authority. I actually have to try to take some roundabout path for this one. Because everything he
yeah,
does is so blatant, so obvious, so belligerent, where Reagan definitely was a lot more, subtle and cool about it.
for sure. His history as an actor definitely paid off there. Like
Yes.
knew how to be a performer and be just evasive when he needed to, and be charming and have a good presence in front of the camera. I don't think there's a thing specifically that's going to be that with Trump. I think that is going to happen to Trump more when he ceases to be useful. If he
Mhm.
ceases to be a useful, something will sink him, and it almost doesn't matter because base is conditioned to follow the propaganda at this point. And I feel like they've got it at the point where it's 1984. They can tell him Trump has always been bad. We've always hated Trump, and just jump the shark over to the next pool.
I wonder how long Trump's shelf life is, because I thought that I had I continue. I think I've said continuously throughout the entire time that we've known that Trump was
You've said it
reelected
continuously
has
through
been
that time
that
period, yeah.
has been that the neoliberals will probably win, and by that I mean, like, the American oligarchic stock neoliberals. I don't feel like
Yeah, I don't
the
think so at
ketamine
this point.
infused Elon Musk is gonna get there. I feel like he's gonna burn out. It's gonna be the old guard with a lot more power and, a lot that they've gained from this experience. But do you think that, like, Chuck Schumer's complete rolling over is a sign of
Fuck.
that? Or is it just a sign of the Democratic Party being completely, like, how sincere do you think the Democratic Party's fracturing is?
It's
Is it more of an orchestrated thing,
no.
or is it just they don't know what's going
It
on?
seems. I think it's genuinely organic in a way.
Mhm.
Um, like that's always been the nature of the Democratic Party. Like it's always been more genuinely the big tent, and with all of these mantras like Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. Like it's like herding cats. It's true. So the fractures have always been bigger because like they're that group isn't going to hold their nose and just go along with party orthodoxy nearly as much as the right side, which makes sense to me because I think the political right, the conservative political spectrum is always going to be closer or more attracted to fascism. Like they're conditioned for that strong leader, father figure type going back to the Christianity. Like it's embedded into their religion.
Mm.
So why would a political and just way of life structuring that aligns with that not make sense? It seems baked into the cake of that group of people. People of that
Yeah,
disposition.
I guess I would expect, maybe. Uh, I feel like I probably brought this up directly before too, and we've talked recently and recorded even, but it's just surprising to me that people that have spent so much time and effort ingraining themselves into the ostensibly left political apparatus
Hmm.
in this country have, through tons of money, through tons of glad handing, through, especially when I'm talking about the Chuck Schumers and the
Yeah,
Pelosi's,
yeah.
and less the AOCs, right? But and the Bernies. But, when we have those kinds of people that have played the game for so long, how are they this fucking bad at it when they don't have good cards?
Maybe
Like,
they're not though. Maybe
it's
that is the clue that like they're not failing right now necessarily. Their team
that, and that's
isn't
that's what I
winning,
meant.
but they're keeping the machine going. They're keeping this organ grinder grinding, even though they're not
Hmm.
they're not the ones running the handle on the organ grinder. They're still grinding organs. So preserving the game itself, preserving their part in the game and the game is beneficial to them, to the Schumers, fucking just that guy today. Like it's the left wing in this country's job to protect Israel, or however the fuck he said that. Sweet fucking Jesus, dude. Like, you wonder why the party is fucking completely fractured when that's where you're at after all of this. Like, fuck. Come on, man.
Well, I feel like some of that is actually trying to get ahead of uh, Bernie and AOC, both being out there getting, large rallies going, and also Walls recently being interviewed and being very critical of the presidential campaign that he was a part of. Which,
Yeah.
honestly, when people, I feel like when people talk about, like, why isn't Obama out there saying something, doing something, why isn't Harris out there saying something, doing something, that's actually, I think, all we're asking of them to
Yes.
do is
All
just
this
be
time,
be
all in
honest
one.
and critical of yourselves.
Be out there, but just, be critical of yourself, be whatever, but just be there. give the people who
Yeah.
believe in this shit and who thought that you're actually doing this shit for the right reasons, just give them something. Give them a figure to look to. Give them radio silence that's been going on ever since from these. The silence is deafening, man. Like, and that's what the ones that are speaking out are getting. It's sad that there are so few of them. There's so few of the
Mhm.
AOCs and Jasmines and Bernies and Murphys and
Mhm.
the. I could go on, but
There's so few of them. There's so few of them today, but I mean, when AOC and Bernie show up to do a rally, I believe it was in Phoenix, if I recall correctly.
they were just in Colorado recently. They were in like Hordell or something like that.
They were also in Phoenix,
Yeah, yeah,
in Arizona. So yeah, so when Bernie Sanders and AOC show up in Arizona and 15,000
yeah,
people show up to their rally, what's the election?
yeah.
That's not that these are people that are being motivated to show up to something 3 months. Not even 3. I think Trump's actually been in office for 62 days or something like that. Like it's not been it's not been that long.
No,
Like
April. Is it? Yeah, 4/20 will be 90 days. Because
yeah.
that's when
Yeah,
that
so
review that they instated on the first day. Yeah, the 20th, which makes sense since inauguration.
yeah, so today, so yeah, 62 days. He's been so 62 days out from a new president being seated, and you have 15,000 people showing up at a rally. In my opinion, this is once again the people that are into gamesmanship in politics, the people that are looking to angle shoot. They're actually going to start taking notice of an actual, grassroots left
Yeah,
population of voters that are there to, for some of them, probably bilk and be
yeah.
just standard liberal bullshit.
There are always going to
Or
be
and
those people into any political movement that are going to glom onto it
yeah,
and use their talents.
but hopefully there will be some true believers in
Yes.
that nonsense too, and fewer Fettermans
Oh,
and more AOCs.
yeah. I'm afraid slash honestly it probably really needs to happen that it is just going to fucking fracture the party in half. Like it's either
Mhm,
the old guard is going to have to die off real fast, or it's going
mhm.
to split. I don't think that this dichotomy between where Schumer, Jeffries' establishment is and where AOC, Bernie are. I don't think those can coexist. Like,
I don't think they can either, and I mean, obviously, Bernie doesn't really give a shit
he's always been an
about
independent. Like,
he's always
he's
been an
never bought into
independent,
their bullshit
and
entirely. Anyway, like,
he's always been an independent, and he's out there right now telling people to run as an independent.
yeah,
Like, don't rely on this party apparatus that's obviously failing you at every fucking step of the way.
yeah.
Fuck that.
But I mean,
Like,
by
just
aligning herself with that, AOC is definitely stepping out. Bernie doesn't have that much,
mhm.
like politically, he doesn't have anything to lose, which I don't think. I think he genuinely believes in all the shit that he's been into. He's just been doing the same shit for too long, too consistently to not genuinely believe in his causes.
Oh, for sure, absolutely, no question, no question.
But I mean, like, it seems the rational choice to me at this point too. I don't see the old guard Democratic Party surviving, and I don't want it to either. Because if that's what the establishment is, fuck every bit of that, and it needs to die horribly. It brought us to now. It laid down and fucking yielded, and just let all of this
Mhm.
happen over the last 10 plus years. So like, fuck you.
Well, 10 plus years. I mean,
Oh, like
look at how even when they had the presidency, when they had 2 years of basically like unilateral control of the government with Barack Obama. Look at what they used the time for. It was largely putting
that even
forward ideas that would be ostensibly progressive and then folding on them constantly.
yeah. I think there is some context to that that's important, though. Numerically, yes, they did have that majority for a minute. It was brief, but they did have that majority before the next. There was a special election that kicked in that they then lost that full majority. But part of that majority also was very unreliable voters, like the Joe Manchin and somebody else, another. Someone who was an independent caucus Democrat. Was it Lieberman? Is he? Yeah, Lieberman fucked us on
It was
several
Lieberman.
things.
Yeah.
He should have been a Democrat, but he refused to sign on to several. So yeah, they had this majority numerically, but partially being first black president, and he had a weird standard that he had to try and kind of follow, along with being internally hamstrung by the Liebermans and having a absolutely bulletproof, staunch opposition, which, goddamn, I hate to be saying, but we could be taking some fucking lessons from Mitch McConnell. Like, he straight up said that their object was to make him a one-term president and did everything possible, and it was just accepted. Like, oh, we shouldn't ask any better of him than that. Like, of course they're going to be like.
But that's just it. That's just it. They had a moment where they did have the numbers, and I can guarantee you, anytime Republicans find themselves with the numbers, they fucking make it
Absolutely,
happen.
they're more effective in the minority than the Democrats are in the majority.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying is Democrats as a strategy have failed by and large to make Republicans pay politically for their obstruction.
Yeah.
And that's
how do
the
you make somebody
difference in
that has
the way
no
they wield
shame
power.
pay for
And-
this? Like, hypocrisy doesn't work against these people. It's becoming more and more evident all the time. Like, how do you make them pay for that if shame is out the window?
I mean, during the Obama administration, during that political era, I think that
More
there was
possible
definitely a
then
lot.
than now, but like now,
It was considerably more possible then. Now it's more of a
hypocrisy carries
you know,
zero fucking weight whatsoever. Like,
well, it carries some, but it only carries some on one subject that's of any value, and that is that the only war is the class war.
sure.
Like that subject is what actually consistently galvanizes people across their
Yeah.
social concerns.
That's
by and
why
large.
there's fucking 15,000 people showing up to a town hall in Montana for their own Republican elected official and fucking getting up their ass.
Right.
Which,
Right. And that's why there was that's why it's like a messaging failure when Obama's in office at that point. Is Obama is doing a lot of, I mean, whatever you want to say about he's the first black president, he's got to play by the rules more strictly, whatever the reason is, there's a placating position that's being used strategically there.
they strategically
and
placated.
it's not one that says hey, I'm Barack Obama and I'm fucking here for you. It's more of a passive thing.
Yeah.
we've got hope.
Yeah, I wish they could have gotten
That's
past
awesome that we've got hope.
That
but
whole they go low, we go high bullshit is a nice
Yes.
ideal and it worked for a minute, but goddamn, we need to we should have gotten rid of that fucking not yesterday, but yeah, that is a losing political strategy when the other side doesn't even adhere to basic facts.
Mhm.
Dude, I hate to have to ask, but would you mind if we took a quick 5?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah, okay, cool. Be right back.
Yep. I'll join you on that.
Yeah. I refreshed my drink. I had just a little bit of the same single malt I had prior. Finished that, and in the fridge, I had a little bit of that Jameson cold brew coffee whiskey left over.
Ooh, yeah,
That
yeah.
shit is
That was pretty nice
so
stuff.
good. Man, it's got such a good dark, but still kind of sweet, but definitely a little bit bitter.
Mm-hmm.
Just that dark, complex fucking flavor. Love it.
Yeah, I did like that, and I'm not a huge Jameson guy by any means. So
I gotta be in the right mood for it. Regular old Jameson, like, yeah, not very often is that gonna be a go-to.
mhm. That was one that was always like a common shot that was getting passed around. Like if somebody that I worked with, and it basically like any place, and it was getting shots. It was like a 50-50. If we're at like uh just a dive or
Yeah.
whatever, it's like a 50-50 between like a green tea shot and Jameson.
But don't forget, like, a Jaeger or
God,
you
man,
probably hate that shit, don't you?
Jaeger. Yeah, I'm not a black licorice fan, not a Jaeger fan, except I did have a short amount of time. I liked it a little bit when it was like super, super ice cold. I mean, like you keep it in the
Oh, the colder the
freezer.
better, for sure.
Yeah, for sure the colder the better. And like I would be okay with the anise flavor with the right kind of like soda to chase. But then I'm just chasing like sugar alcohol with sugar.
Yeah, it's good with even just, like, with a little bit of ginger ale, just something. It's not just the sugar, it's like the bubbliness of it too, kind of breaks up that flavor, and I think it probably breaks it up
Mhm.
on your palate a little bit too.
Yeah,
That
probably so.
fizziness
Yeah.
probably physically breaks it up a little bit in your mouth and lets you kinda clear it, so you're not, like, on that flavor.
I'm still working on this here Four Roses. I got just some regular old standard.
Just good old yellow label.
Mhm.
Good shit, man.
Mhm.
Dollar for dollar, that is some good fucking shit.
One whiskey that I'm sad to lose in these dark times actually is Woodford.
Oh, is it going under?
Have you seen no, not going
It's
under.
just gone to shit.
Trump Trump presidential Woodford Reserve whiskey.
Ew. Gross.
with
Ew. Oh,
with
God, I wish I knew. Well, there's the
with our
story. Never
glorious
mind.
leader's face emblazoned on the bottle.
Dude, like,
Woodford.
how? What? How is? How? How? How are so many different people in the private fucking sector just willingly tap dancing along with that? Like, just straight up complying in advance. Like, rushing to the front of the line to see who can be Daddy's favorite little fucking brown shirt. Like, I guess when all you give two fucks about is money, like, whatever. But
Harkening back to the past again, we have
oh, we're hearkening now, are
these
we?
like yes, hearkening, yes. We have these old comforting sayings, things like "this too shall pass" and stuff like
Uh-huh.
that. That these things are very comfortable, but we don't think about oftentimes the times that they come out of
Uh-huh.
and the actions that people took to make sure that those times did pass. Uh, so there's a lot of passivity, and there's also a lot of, I think, just straight up mainlined hopium where people assume that, again, if they bend over far enough, then dear leader won't kill them, won't cut off their head.
Or somehow the ship will right itself, and we'll go down to the Winchester, and this whole thing will blow over.
Yeah, like there's a misconception that the normal state of human society is one that's ordered.
Yeah.
But that if anything, we have shown it's the exact opposite. It takes effort to maintain any sort of cohesion. even if you're doing it through deleterious and militaristic and just patently evil ways, it still takes effort.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you still have to put the
Uh,
work in. Like,
yeah.
it's not going to maintain itself. In fact, your little fascist state is going to take a lot more maintenance to keep running because, like, you're taking that measure of control that you otherwise wouldn't have given two shits about unless it made money one way or the other.
Well, and if we're talking about history being cyclical, right?
No.
Hitler died in disgrace, taking his own life in a bunker, unless that actually was a body double, and he fled to Antarctica to get inside the Hollow Earth to start the Sixth Reich or whatever they're on inside of the Earth at this point.
Whatever, potato,
But
potato at this point.
potato, killed
Either way,
himself in
yeah,
a bunker.
we got
or,
the moral victory of that motherfucker blowing his brains out, and
so if history is cyclical and somebody like Trump is bound to somehow fall out, but isn't going to do so through some acquiescence to honor or the rule of law or anything like that.
those silly
what
little notions.
what do you think we can do politically? What can be done by the ostensive left to
At this point, nothing.
to overload it, because I think the only way to make it
The only thing that they could use their political power for at this point would just be to throw monkey wrenches into the gears of power and use that power to grind it to fucking filibuster everything, fucking play their game, but back harder, and it's something that they're clearly not gonna do as a party. But like that's what this moment requires. If that's the only force you have politically, use it, because otherwise, why have a political party? The Constitution, the republic that your political party operates in, is being torn asunder. So, like, if not now, when?
I do think that there might be God, this is so crazy. Oh God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. So do you remember the rally to restore sanity?
That sounds. Oh, was that the Mike Lindell thing or something?
No, that was the rally. Oh my God, I can't believe you don't remember this. Actually,
I'm gonna kick myself
the
in
rally the rally to restore sanity and or fear was basically a political rally, sort of a protest that Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert put on in 2010.
Yeah, I
Do you-
forgot that name, but yeah, now that you mention it, okay.
It's really funny in some ways, how I mean, honestly, I was very critical of it at the time. I thought it was kind of
It
just
seemed kind of schmaltz.
a fucking goof show, and I
It was a
mean,
little goat.
given some of the cast of characters there, I'm pretty sure Kid Rock was in the rally to
Ew.
restore sanity.
What?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yes.
What? Well, shows that
Yes.
dipshit doesn't give a fuck about any of the little issues he glommed onto, being anti-woke, and fucking that guy was in the White House. God damn, like,
I feel like there's a danger of a political messaging like that potentially actually arising out of AOC and Bernie Sanders, not because of those two, but if there is some alliance of those two with people like Judge Boasberg, which I know this is a member of the judiciary. It's supposed to be not a political entity, but Trump is making
yeah, none of the people on the
uh,
Supreme Court are supposed to be political either, but
right, exactly. And Trump is making Boasberg political. Boasberg, if you
yeah,
don't know by name immediately.
yeah, I remember the name. The judge that ruled against him in the deportation flights, correct?
Yes. Yes, that is yes, exactly. And
Which again,
there's
openly defying the fucking judiciary.
yes, openly defying the judiciary and openly defying the people that I think would be like some of the people that I think would be very pro like a political message of sanity because it's
Yeah.
nonpartisan,
Yeah.
right? And that's sort of where the judges are ostensibly supposed to be. I know
Roberts is trying
obviously
to
they're
stand
fucking
up,
not.
yeah. Trying to stand up for the
Uh,
sanctity of the judiciary.
Roberts is
And talk about walking a fine line.
yeah.
Not that I don't, not that I
Yeah.
feel bad for the guy, because fuck him to hell and back. But Jesus
My thing
Christ,
with my thing with Roberts is it's worth remembering two things. One, him standing up for Boasberg is also protecting
Sure.
himself
Oh, that's
from impeachment on something else that might come up down the line that he does, stand up to Trump on.
yeah.
But also, Supreme Court judges, they hate being questioned, regardless of the depth of their belief in, any of their rulings or any of their political lining, statements or anything like that they might actually make. Regardless of their sincerity, they fucking hate being questioned. And
Most, yeah, I
uh,
would say for sure.
and Nazi Germany wasn't like a completely 100% united front. Yes, they were a group of people that all did, basically fall in line for heinous atrocities, but they didn't agree on everything as far as how those atrocities should be carried out and which ones they should do first or anything like that. And that's sort of the way I look at Roberts. It's like you're standing up a little bit, but it's more to protect your position in this coalition.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of room for competing ideals that the Führer will allow little healthy competition in the ranks.
I do think that Roberts opens up some of where the overloading of the system could be, which is by more judges basically making similar rulings to Boasberg, which it's happening all the time. And as Trump
Because
gets
you're doing so much
more,
unconstitutional shit. Like, imagine that.
well, and as Trump gets more embittered and more dragged down in these judicial arguments, he's that he doesn't understand that he personally himself and probably some of the people like
There's no
Elon and
understanding.
people like that around him, yeah, they literally don't understand this shit.
They
So
could not pass a high school civics test.
so impeachment is like the only thing that they're gonna lean on, like try to remove these people from their positions, and that is something that like Roberts has obviously shown he'll bristle at, and other members of the court will too. And that is like the kind of infighting that we desperately need. Like
Yes.
that scale
Yeah.
of infighting is what
Turn
we
on
desperately need.
Amy Coney Barrett and call her a DEI hire. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. For just remotely going against the party orthodoxy one time. Like, if that's not just absolutely naked fucking misogyny right there. Like,
Yeah, it's so obvious, it's so in your face, and it's the kind of thing that once again, when you're talking about somebody that has the kind of ego and temperament to find themselves in the Supreme Court, that is exactly the kind of shit they don't fucking like at all.
good. Man, I hope you really, really don't like that. I hope selling your soul fucking hurts a little bit.
Yeah. I hope that's the thing is you sell your soul to Satan, it's gonna burn a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, boo, boo. Fucking, and poor Elon, all his poor little Teslas is getting burned up. So we're gonna start like considering that terrorism and fucking sending people
Yeah.
to fucking El Salvador to privately owned prisons for civil disobedience.
And again, it is like that this kind of thing happens in the United States. That itself is not unbelievable because we've done this shit before. I mean, we did this shit in the 30s, in the 20s to communists.
Yeah,
We did this
yeah.
shit
It's not like we've never had CIA black sites and shit like that before, but I mean, this is like, it's known, it's in your face. It's, yes, this is happening. This is an overt violation of what your government's supposed to be doing. We're doing it. Fuck you, because that's why. I'm in charge.
Like, could you like the Trump administration literally just puts conspiracy theorists out of business because there's no room for conspiracy. They just he tells you all this shit on X.
QAnon, that's the reason why you don't hear about Q anymore. That whole fucking, have you heard anybody say anything about, none of them mention QAnon.
No,
I've not heard
not a single
anything
person.
about,
Like,
how is that not a thing at all? How is it not? How did it go from being like this huge oracle to it doesn't exist anymore? What about it? Who knows? We never cared.
I feel like the last thing I remember hearing about QAnon was that RFK was Q.
Mm-hmm.
That it was, and not RFK, not in, when I say RFK, I don't mean RFK Jr. I mean RFK didn't die and is actually Q. I think that's the last thing I heard about Q.
Is that what he came? He was supposed to come back. When was that?
Oh, that's what it was. It wasn't that he was Q. It's that he was supposed to come back
And support
from from the shadows, where he's been running the government under the Denver airport with the gray aliens and the shapeshifters and the reptilians.
Yep. Yeah, spot on. Nailed
it. God. Yeah, there's no room for conspiracy anymore, because when Trump wants to do some clandestine operation, he just tells you he's going to do it on X, man. Yeah. He just says it.
I mean, it's just out in the open. Like, we're straight up telling the world that we're not going to look for Russian disinformation or meddling into our political system. Like, we're gonna completely turn a blind eye to Russian interference in these various sectors. Like, one, why are you telegraphing that? Why would you tell that to even your ally? Why would you just say that? But just straight up say it is such a wild act of subservience, of like making America be subservient, and like a good portion of them are still cheering for it, and a good portion still don't give two shits, and the rest of us are screaming like idiots.
So here's the problem, Travis, and I can't believe I have to tell you this. This is obscene, but it's a constant problem when we talk, man. I got to tell you, you don't understand the 13-dimensional chess that Trump is playing here, where he says the door is open to invite the thieves in to an ambush. Okay, what he's going to do is, here in about a week, he's going to say, listen, America, I'm sorry I put you through this. I'm sorry, this has been a ruse the whole time, but we've got Putin red-handed.
Yeah,
we caught him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
That's it. You nailed it. He's going to get Putin and the whole deep state all in one foul swoop, and he's going to
all at the same time.
Here they are, blah, 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 spotlights all of a sudden on all these deep states, and
it's your failure of imagination, really.
Yeah, and all the pedophiles, like the whole lot of them. Bam! Just gonna round them up in one foul swoop, and it'll lead us to that promised land that Reagan was supposed to lead us to. He's gonna finally take us to that promised land, that golden city on the hill that Reagan envisioned. And it's literally going to be fucking in gold and fucking tacky fucking Persian, old embossed Trump, everything, because he's their fucking golden calf. The fucking religious right still being glommed onto this motherfucker is so goddamn beyond the pale. It is.
Well, and I think it's evidence that the oligarchs, they are the true nihilists. They believe in absolutely fucking nothing, and they will absolutely abuse any religious apparatus for their own enrichment, whether that's any religion, whether it's Catholics, whether it's Baptists, whether it's Jews, whether it's Muslims, whether they need to turn them into enemies or allies, it doesn't fucking matter. They absolutely will abuse them, and any ounce of religious fervor that they can stoke for their own,
100%, and
like
even
for their own enrichment.
further to that exact thing, Putin. I mean, by that rationale, he's the
Mhm.
greatest nihilist
Mhm.
there is. Like he believes in nothing other than achieving these ends.
If you're Putin, if you're the pragmatist that I imagine in a lot of ways, once again, pragmatist when he's looking at his own desires, his own direction. If he's that kind of pragmatist that I imagine him to be, what is the end game for that guy? Like, like what does?
Well, we're
It's not
about
like
to
he actually
see
expects to be emperor of the world.
no, in as close to any way possible, he is or has been. Like by most reliable estimates from our intelligence agencies and the various Five Eyes, he's the richest man on Earth, or has spent a lot of time in that position. He's widely speculated to be the richest person on Earth.
Yeah, I've heard that as well, and I'm
I
curious
think it
as
comes
to
back. It's
like,
more importantly than that is just this pride of bringing back the Russian Empire. I think that's a huge motivation. He wants to bring back the Soviet Empire and take down the West. It's the Cold War.
I mean, I guess it could be that simple.
Yeah, Brezhnev said that they were gonna take America down without ever firing a shot.
Well, do you have anything else you'd like to leave us out
Dang.
on here?
I will say, you know what? So that song that I brought up to you from AJJ, the Normalization Blues, man, that it definitely bears more listening to. I've gone back and listened to it a number of times, and it's just
Okay.
so insightfully written. There's one line that's popped up that pops up a couple of times. Like man, it just really spoke to me at the moment and just felt super insightful. But can't remember. I wish I could remember what the lead into it was. But he says connections more important now than ever, but I'd rather be alone.
See, I've got it. I'm detached and
Yeah,
I'm distracted, all keyed up but unproductive, vacillating
yeah,
between being all excited and disgusted,
yeah.
and then dozing lackadaisically in this bubble
Yes,
where I've made my mental home. Connections more
be alone.
important now than it
This
ever
little mental
was, but
bubble
I'd
where I've
rather
made
be
my
alone.
home. That is man. I But and yeah, I feel both sides of that too because I've had a few just nice little encounters like meeting people out in the real world. A couple times around disc golf, but like couple good little encounters of late where
Mhm.
it's like, all right, this is the kind of shit that we need to build, and like I for one feel myself like, and it's always been something that I do, but like being less afraid, being more inclined to just like I can start up interactions with neighbors to like just start to build a little bit of a community,
Mhm.
like just kind of reaching out like that. I feel like it's something that like we've lost along the way. Like we lost a big chunk of with COVID. It was such a game changer in that, but we'd been losing
Yeah.
it prior to
Yes.
that, but more slowly. And I
Yes.
miss that. Like when I was a kid, man, like you wouldn't think twice about going to down the road to most house on your streets and saying, "Hey, I'm locked out of my house. Can I use your phone or whatever?" Like it's just yeah, what of course, whatever, no biggie. And like there's maybe one or two people on the street that I'd feel okay about kid's going to. Like, just it's but that's despite like me being out there like talking to people and just like being that guy that does that shit. But no, I've had a couple good a couple good connections of late, like around like shit's going on with the world. Like started off with just a small talk about this dude's truck or whatever. Yeah, that's what it was. And that jumped into something political, and then that sparked a conversation, and then that sparked conversation like another time running into the same dude, but he's got this other buddy with him. So and like it kind of spread conversation that way. But just like getting out in the real world and like building those connections is super important, and it's something small that I'm gonna lean into when I can. Formerly Andrew Jackson Jihad. Which I don't know why you would ever change your name from that. That was such a
Andrew,
name.
that is such a good name. I maybe just to I don't know actually be able to exist on the internet.
It's probably for the best. Probably for the best.
So AJJ
Yes.
Normalization Blues is
It's
the
a
song.
great tune. I forget how good an instrumentalist is too, but it's a solid little bluegrassy romp of a song, I think.
I think for my part, I actually had a kind of media recommendation for people to check out, but it's not
Okay.
it's not music though. It's actually it's a
Okay.
video game. It's a PlayStation game. It's one of my favorite games of all time, actually. But it's released in 1997.
Okay.
It's Final Fantasy Tactics. It is one of the games in the long running Final Fantasy series, as you could probably guess. But a kind of an offshoot of the main branch of the series, and it dives into not to spoil it really for anybody that hasn't played it, but before it gets off into some like broader like sort of like man versus gods kind of storytelling angle. There's a heavy emphasis on socioeconomic struggles and the righteousness of certain rebellious causes, and also how a potentially righteous rebellious cause can be co-opted by a nefarious personality. And it's a wonderful game with interesting characters and fun gameplay, and it's very accessible because for gamers of any sort, because it doesn't take like any like fast twitch muscle to play or anything. It's not like a
If you're a kid today, you've been raised with shit that's way faster than that since you were 3.
yeah, it's all turn based, it's all strategy, and there's tons of things online that can help you get through the actual game itself if you struggle playing it and you're just playing it for the story. But it is a lot of fun, and a fantastic story, and I can't recommend it enough. But yeah, I guess I recommend people check that out, and try to find a little bit of joy in in playing some games, and maybe disconnecting for a few minutes from the
Yeah, we've got to
the
disconnect from
news.
this horror show a little bit, even when we are connecting with out
Mhm.
there with people around us and making connections that are valuable for these trying times that we're living in. Got to have somebody to offer an egg in these trying times. Yeah, you also have to just like fucking let it go too. We got to maintain our sanity and keep looking for joy. Like that's a good thing to keep coming back to, because it's still going to be out there in the world, and we still have to keep looking for that. If not why? If not, why are we going on? there's not something, if there's not some beauty to life out there to strive for, like, what's the point?
Right. And this kind of, even though it's just a video game, it's I would say relatively obscure even in the series of games. It is still a piece of art that has a meaningful message to it that I think somebody like Donald Trump wouldn't really appreciate very much. And given the direction of the kinds of censorship they're engaging in, when it's whether it be directly picking up people and deporting them for leading protests on university campus, or if it's them removing mentions of DEI people in the biggest air quotes you can possibly imagine from from government websites, right? Uh, this kind of art, even as banal as it may seem, is also potentially at risk. And
Yeah,
enjoying it while it is around, and
they don't got to burn the books; they just remove them, man. Like,
like even if you're disconnected from the news, you can still engage with things that make you feel empowered in this kind of activity.
yeah,
So
wonderful message.
yeah, try to find those things. I think that's a really good mix of pieces of advice. Try to make those local connections and try to find things that are outside of the clickbait news cycle to
Yeah,
empower your
yeah, things
understanding and
like,
drive
and like
for
you
a better
mentioned
world.
earlier, to empower yourself. Ideally, to make this a better world, empower
Mhm.
yourself to be better and to do something better.
Who the fuck is that? Staring in my window, doing that surveillance on Mr. Michael Render. I'm dropping off the grid before they pump the lid. I leave you with 4 words. I'm glad Reagan dead.